5 or so years back, I was a Windows user, but going back to when I was a kid, I discovered what at the time was one of my favorite applications, an application that I stuck with for probably way too long. Winamp, a music player that's been around since the late 90s, and at least with the default theme, really looked like it was from the late 90s. And yes, I know we have XMMS on Linux, which was made specifically to clone Winamp, but Winamp holds a very special place in my heart. So I was very excited when I saw this a few days ago. Big news, Winamp source code will be available on September 24th. This release invites developers worldwide to contribute to its evolution to help create the perfect player for Windows users. Along with this, there was also a press release which for some reason has the wrong date attached to it, but regardless, Winamp has announced that it is opening up its source code to enable collaborative development of its legendary player for Windows. As we go through this, pay very close attention to the terminology being used. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. Winamp has announced that on the 24th of September 2024, the application source code will be open to developers worldwide. Winamp will open up its code for the player used on Windows, enabling the entire community to participate in its development. This is an invitation to global collaboration, where developers worldwide can contribute their expertise, ideas, and passion to help this iconic software evolve. Winamp has become much more than just a music player. It embodies a unique digital culture, aesthetic, and user experience. With this initiative to open the source code, Winamp is taking the next step in its history, allowing its users to contribute directly to improving the product. This is a decision that will delight millions of users around the world. Our focus will be on new mobile players and other platforms. We will be releasing a new mobile player at the beginning of July. Still, we don't want to forget the tens of millions of users who use the software on Windows and will benefit from thousands of developers' experience and creativity. Winamp will remain the owner of the software and will decide on the innovations made in the official version, explains CEO of Winamp. Now, some very few news outlets caught on to what was being said. A lot of others basically bought in hook, line, and sinker. XDA developers, Winamp is going open source, and it feels like the early 2000s again. TextBot, Winamp music player will soon become an open source project. In both the Twitter post and the press release, there is one specific term that isn't used whatsoever. You'll see things like source code will be available, opening up its source code will be open up its code. This doesn't necessarily mean it won't be open source, but it is very curious to me that they don't use the term open source a single time throughout either of the posts here. Also, it is very curious that they don't mention a license whatsoever, whether it's going to be MIT, BSD, GPL, which it probably wouldn't be, Apache, or really anything else. There is zero mention of the license. Maybe this is just companies taking forever to do things, but it is kind of weird to me that it's going to take 4 whole months to open up the source code. If your plan is to go open source and you're announcing the fact that you're going to go open source, wouldn't you have everything ready to just go open source to release everything, whether it's on a Git repo or whether it's available as a tarball on your website? Why 4 months? Now, that's just a weird thing by itself. This is just like one little data point. Now, if we go to the link here, this is on their original announcement post, it takes us to an email letter sign up. Here they are calling it Free Llama. To me, this means that what they are opening up the source for isn't Winamp in its entirety. It is a very specific subset that they are calling Free Llama. Whilst people in the FOSS space and the Linux space have a general understanding of what it means for something to be open source, when we are talking about the general public, frankly, a lot of people have absolutely no idea what open source means, they will see something that is source available, and even if there is explicitly a policy that says no redistribution, no forking the code, there will be people out there that see that as open source. Now, I cannot say for a fact if this is not going to actually be open source, but there's a lot of weird things about how they're framing this. Another thing that connects to my subset theory is they specifically make a distinction for the official version of the software. This implies there is a non-official version. What version would that be? Well, that would be the source code is available version, free llama. And I did mention there was some news outlets that caught on to what was going on. ZDNet did a relatively good job here. Winamp is not going open source. Here's what it's doing and why. Winamp is not open sourcing its code, as this misconception has been circulating. It's important to set the record straight. The current owner, Llama Group, I'll get into them in just a bit, has plans for the app that are not open source compatible. Instead, as the Winamp CEO said, Winamp will remain the owner of the software and will decide on the innovations made in the official version. The sort of open source version is going by the name Free Llama. While Winamp hasn't said what license it will use for this forthcoming version, it cannot be open source with that level of corporate control. This is a really weirdly phrased sentence. It could absolutely be open source with that level of corporate control. But if they have a version that is the free llama version, and then a version that is very clearly the proprietary version, absolutely couldn't be open source. It should also be noted that this opening up the code only applies to the Windows version. The Mac, the classic Mac version called Macamp, Android, and iOS editions alongside the DOS version, DOSAMP, those are not going source code is available. Now, I'm really not surprised by this weird marketing-heavy, hand-wavy attempt by Winamp here, because the Winamp that everyone knew and everyone loved is long, long dead. Honestly, even after most people started using Winamp, that version of Winamp was long, long dead, but it was still relatively not crazy. So after a successful first 2 years, Nullsoft, the developers of Winamp, got purchased in 1999 by AOL, with its founder sticking around until 2004, until he started to try to open source a couple of things during the Time Warner merger, like an MP3 search engine, some patches for AOL Instant Messenger to block advertising, and there was a lot of drama, and they kind of wanted to get rid of him. This is the state that it was in until 2013, 2014 time. That's when things started to go really downhill. Completely irrelevant to the main point, but fun little fact, the guy who started Winamp now runs the company that develops the Reaper door software. Anyway, back to the main point in 2013, 2014. So in 2013, a company called Radionomy comes along and acquires an advertising firm called TargetSpot. In 2014, they also acquire Winamp. At this stage, it's pretty straightforward. Following this, a company called Audio Valley comes along and acquires a approximately 98% stake in Radionomy, and then Audio Valley renames themselves to TargetSpot. Okay? Then the Azarian Group comes along and snaps up most of the subsidiaries of Radionomy, leaving TargetSpot, who was previously Audio Valley, basically with just Winamp and a couple of other small properties. Then TargetSpot, who was previously Audio Valley, then renames themselves to Llama Group in 2023. You know, Llama, like the iconic track used to demo Winamp.
Winamp. It really whips the llama's ass.
Why do I mention all this? Well, it's because there is absolutely no love left in this application. Its only reason for still existing is basically squeezing out every little drop of nostalgia, making people remember, oh, I used that application back in 1998. Oh, I used it back in 2003. Oh, look, Winamp's still around. Wow, that's crazy. I'm going to look at Winamp. So, as such, it shouldn't be surprising that back in 2022, Winamp is doing NFTs now, and its founder hates it. Why? Because it was 2022, and that is what every grifting company did. Now, for the record, this has not been removed from the platform. They still have NFTs here. They are still going down that route. If you still care about Winamp, this might not give you that much hope. But at least there is WhackUp, the Winamp community update project, aiming to basically re-implement the original application and keep the old legacy alive instead of what the current IP holders are doing with it. Honestly, I hope I am wrong about them just not using the term open source, and that's just weird marketing stuff and they just don't really know how to write it properly. I don't think I'm going to be wrong about them only if they do open sourcing a small subset of the project, that being the free llama thing, and then the actual Winamp that everybody who cares about Winamp for some reason still downloads, and maybe the changes made to free llama will just be siphoned into the main version, basically as free labor. But what do you think? Do you think it is actually going to go open source and the free llama thing is just the way they are naming that version? I would love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to... I accidentally hit the stop recording key. So if you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, Scribes, LiberaPay link in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and let me know your favorite music player down below. See you guys later.
Something like this.